Okay, we'll call the Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 Williams County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. Beth, will you call roll, please?
Barry?
Here.
Corey?
Here.
Bo?
Here.
David is absent today.
We have a quorum. We will continue. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with item C, consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote.
Barry?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Bo?
Yes.
Motion passes. We're moving on to item D, public comments. Just a reminder, these are general public comments, not related to anything that's necessarily on the agenda. We have this every meeting. Okay, seeing no general public comments, we'll move into our first public hearing, the 2025 county budget hearing. Do we go ahead and open the hearing then? Karen? Okay. We're going to open the 2025 Williams County budget hearing, and we're looking for general or any budget-related comments from the public. Again, any comments from the public on the 2025 county budget? Okay, third and final time, any comments on the 2025 Williams County budget? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. And now do we just need a formal approval of the 2025 budget? Okay. Okay. Should be in the, it's at the bottom. Oh. The now therefore be it resolved section? Is that what we're looking for? Okay.
Make a motion to approve the resolution adopting the 2025 final budget and tax levy for Williams County.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote, please.
Corey?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Bo?
Yes.
David? Not here, sorry. Barry?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item F, new business. This is the appeal for the Enter4 Data Pleasant Valley Data Center, and we'll start with Cameron.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, County Commission.
Good morning.
Cameron Heimer, Development Services. This morning, we have an appeal from Harvey Fitzgerald as well with Interstate Engineering, as well as Enter4 Digital Valley LLC for a data center. Back in July, we had met with Interstate and the folks with the data center about a potential data center in Dry Fork Township. I think Ryan has it on the maps there, bookmarked, that we can pull up to get an idea of the location. During the review, staff did determine that the property location did not meet the required setback or the setback requirements in our data center ordinance. The ordinance does read exterior boundary lines to exterior boundary lines. There's approximately 3 sensitive properties that were identified, which would be homes. If we were not to measure from the exterior property lines, they were pretty close to meeting the 1 mile setback, but however, we're bound by the ordinances staff. Meeting with Interstate, I explained to them that we wouldn't be able to process their application for a CUP for a data center due to that, but they had the right to come to the board to appeal that decision. Staff did go through the area. We took a view of the maps. It is important to note that this is a pretty heavy industrial and commercial area. However, there are properties that don't meet the setback requirement, or that cause issues with the setback requirements. Another item that we did look into is the Williams County Comprehensive Plan. I don't know if you have that attachment, Ryan, but that area was designated by the comprehensive plan as an employment area for commercial industrial growth. But again, we're tied, our hands are tied by the ordinance, so we had to follow that and deny their application. If the county commission feels that approval of their appeal is appropriate, it's also important to note that they would still have to come back in front of the board for a public hearing for a CUP, and then there would also be time for public comment with that. I do believe that the applicant is here, and they would like to speak to the board as well. But if you have any questions for me now or later, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Cameron. Okay. Just as a reminder, state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Harvey Fitzgerald with Interstate Engineering. And on behalf of Enter4 Digital Valley, we are assisting them with the civil site design for this project. This site was one that was chosen due to the proximity to a substation. It's off of a paved road. It's already zoned heavy industrial. This site in particular has already been graded, so there's quite a bit of savings on wear and tear on the county road for not having to haul in material to grade the site, gravel the site, surface the site, things of that nature. So that's why we've decided to pursue this appeal to try to let it be heard from the P&Z and in front of you guys as well. Enter4 Digital Valley has a couple representatives here, and they also started a PowerPoint, and they have a hard copy here I can pass out to you guys as well. If you'd like, they can pull it up on the screen too, if you guys want to see some additional details on the development.
We should have it on the screen so everybody can see.
Yeah. And then we're in the preliminary stages of this since we're going through this appeal process. So we haven't done any site surveying yet, haven't done any design of that nature, but that's something that we're on schedule, just kind of waiting to see how this process plays out.
Which
Yes.
property on the map are we looking at?
It would be the 10290 60th Street West, that property, then the one just to the right of it, both those parcels. And then the substation you can see on the map is just to the north. But I'd be happy to answer any other questions regarding the site design or.
Okay.
Sure.
Just give us a thumbs up when you're ready, Lindsay. And just a reminder to everybody in the audience, you'll have an opportunity to come up and discuss as well or present your concerns.
While we're waiting, I also did fail to mention that the public comments that we got, I did include in the packet, so the public is aware that the commission's also received their writings.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And I'll turn it over to Gary with Interfor to present the
Okay,
presentation. Thank you.
that sounds good. Yeah, and just as a reminder, at 8:30, we'll have to stop because we have another scheduled, is it a public hearing? Or just the approval of the budget for? Joint board, there we go. Thank you.
Okay. Name's Gary Emineth. I'm one of the staff members helping on this project. I'm from Washburn, North Dakota. Our company called, as a LLC, we do separate LLCs, and we'll just kind of walk through the slide deck. If we just go to the next slide. The reason we selected this site is particularly, it's all about power and having access to appropriate land. So we worked with Montreal Williams regarding the substation for power. And so there was power, 30 megawatts of power is available at this particular location. We looked at probably a dozen sites with Montreal Williams throughout the county. Many of the sites are already zoned agriculture, which becomes a challenge. And with your ordinance, we have to deal with the fact that it's agriculture, then we got to get it rezoned heavy industrial, which I understand that's now been changed, so it can still stay agriculture, but you need a CUP. So that's why we actually submitted to this location, because this site was heavy industrial zoned already. So we just have some background on what Bitcoin is. I won't go into that unless you got questions. We'll go to the next slide. Project developments, we're working with Frederick's Custom Solutions, which is tier 1 on the reservation. We're working on another project over by Plaza. They're our contractor, so the building of the site would be done by Frederick's Custom Solutions. Our company, Interfor Digital, we have a number of locations under construction down in the Dallas area, smaller than this. And we have one we're working on in South Dakota, and along with one with Plaza. We typically create a new LLC unique to each. It's a North Dakota LLC based out of Bismarck. And so typically we form LLCs with different investor partners many times in each of the projects. Next slide, please. Pleasant Valley, so it's a 30 megawatt location. The idea with it is we're looking at the site that you see on the, I guess it would be your left or on the right on the screen. This property consists of about 14 acres. There's a building on 4 acres of it, and then there's another 10 acres to the side adjacent. That is where we'd like to construct a building. We've been toying whether we should do 1 or 2 buildings. And the idea with it is because it's heavy industrial, our goal would be we wanted to break ground this year. It all depends on what comes with the planning and zoning and snow flying and frost line. So next slide, please. Okay, so if you look at the slide it would be on your left, the building on the side, there's a building on the top right corner of that deck. We would put it on the 10 acres that's adjacent to it because it's already scoried out. It's been developed a heavy industrial. There's quite a bit of work that's already been on it. There's actually a well on the back side of the property towards the bottom. But we would use that building as a maintenance building. We're either looking at one building that'd be about 350 feet long by 60 feet, or about that in half, 2 parallel buildings to support the miners that would go in to support the 30 megawatt power that we'd be getting from there. All right, any question? Next slide. So this happened to be a picture of the 2 buildings that's been designed. The top right is what our design building would look like. The air would come in from the sides and it would go out through what's hot air would escape through the top. So that's where you typically get sounds that people would be concerned about. We have a power agreement in place with Montreal Williams. and now we're just in the regulatory page. We got an option on the land, and we're working on engineering design. We haven't proceeded because obviously if the appeal goes through, we then have to work forward through the entire process, which is about 6 weeks from now. We would bring it before planning and zoning, and then, of course, go through the county for final approval. So that would be the idea, is that tentatively we're toying with 2 buildings or 1 building. That's the center picture of what you're seeing. Question? All right, next slide. These are our partners, Montreal Williams, Fredericks Custom Solutions. We're working with the electrician company out of a Tier 1 on the reservation, Age Power. Obviously, you met Harvey from Interstate Engineering, local firm here that is handling all the engineering and design. And this would be a steel building. Next slide. The goal of it is just working through the planning and zoning. Obviously, we're requesting the idea for the variance for the CUP. We think we're very close to the distance and mileage, and so that's why we're here. Working through all the planning and zoning, getting the permits necessary to accomplish it. Next slide, please. This just gives a little bit of some noise, and I just thought we'd put it out here that if you take a look at it, like this John Deere tractor, decibels typically at about 90 dBA. We believe at about 600 feet, doing all the studies, there's a number of things you can do through the inverse law. It says that basically how it decreases. So at 600 feet, the decibels would be at about 40 decibels. And to give you an example, on the left side, you see the reference 70 decibels is the normal conversation between 2 people. Obviously, different times of the year, times of the weather and the wind, noise may carry further, but the decibel should be around 75 to 80 is what would typically for these miners that would be. But our design that I talked about, we're bringing the air into the outsides and the air escapes through the top. So it's going to be air-cooled machines. And this would be the typical, at about a half a mile, it's down to about 30 decibels or less. And that's about like a whisper or a mosquito. So it doesn't mean I live off a highway about a quarter mile off the highway. And sometimes a car can drive by and it sounds like there's a freight train. So just as we know how sound can carry sometimes with weather and wind, et cetera. Any questions on the sound that would related to this?
When you say the hot air is escaping out the top, is it going straight up or is
Yes.
it getting?
Straight up. So it comes in from the side. So we have miners on the side of the building. The air will come in. We will do a number of things inside the building for sound that would be able to absorb sound. We're bringing the miners back a distance from where the air gets pulled into the building. And then there's a chamber that's hollow down the center that'd be about 30 foot high the air would go up and escape through the top. So that should do a lot to help protect the noise that would come from the miners themselves. The
What
other thing
about the pitch? Now, there's a difference in pitch between a John Deere tractor and these miners. They squeal.
They have a little
whereas
bit of a whistle to it, that is
Yeah.
correct. The thing that we would say where the property sits, the way it sits low, and for the way the landowners are from the properties, we did get a letter from Delta that signed off on the property. They're the closest property to the distance. They signed off on it. We have a couple of the residents that have not signed off on it. We've met with them, request for it. They denied wanting to sign it. But they're right at that mile distance as far as relates to the home residents. But we're kind of sitting down low, and we believe that the sound would not carry at all. Before we even looked at the site, I was out on the location looking and got out of my vehicle, and the whistling from the transmission and the trucks and what's going on there. I don't think anybody even know we're there other than they'd see us till they drive by us. I mean, if there's any place you can do a proper project like this in Williams County, this is probably as good as any we would find with the 1 mile distance and with the heavy industrial and with all the tank batteries there in the farm. There's quite a bit of stuff. If you've been to the site, there's a lot of, and it's right off a paved road, which we like the location.
Just one other question. As a part of your plan, have you considered doing a sound test? I would imagine you could record the sound and then you could play it back on loudspeakers and see just how far that sound would carry.
We could try to do it because we have sites that we have down in Texas that are half a mile away and just under normal noise, you don't even really, we're knowing them there. So we could try to record something like that, but we have not done that. You can do some sound studies, and we have not gone down that road yet to consider that unless we were required to do so.
I don't know does the ordinance require sound studies? Yeah. Okay.
So part of it would have to be working through as we apply for, so we're here to even see if we can apply, so.
Yeah. Yep.
of course.
So this is going to be air cooled.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when we went through this before, because we've done this before,
Yes, sir, I understand.
theirs is air cooled. We were told that technology is nearly extinct and water cooled is the way to go. They're quieter, all this stuff. What's the reason for yours still being air cooled?
There's still a lot of air cooled. The majority that's being installed today is still air cooled. There's a higher cost, harder return on the air cooled, not on the air cooled, on the water cooled and the immersion. So much of it's tied to the price of Bitcoin. And today it's close to $60. It's kind of on the bubble margin wise of it being, lucratively profitable. So we're still doing air cooled in Texas, and we would prefer that in this instance. That's what our goal is.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, how do you guys end up in Williams County, North Dakota? I mean, did
Sure.
Montreal Williams have an advertisement out someplace says we've got super cheap power, get up here, or what's the deal?
Good question. I'm from here. I was working on a project in the Bakken where we took flared gas and we mitigated the flare by extracting the NGLs, and then we would do Bitcoin mining at the wellhead. And it was because of the cooler temperature. So that's the interest of it. When you do air cooled, you want cool air, better than Texas as example. They have problems with miners running efficiently, so the cooler air is good for North Dakota. Second thing is we have lots of power up here. And the idea with it is long-term, using gas will be a long-term option, but it's not economically viable yet because of the cost of gas and generation related to gas. So it's really a function. We're over in Montreal County in Plaza. We're working on one down in South Dakota, down by Aberdeen. So it's a function of where the power is on the grid that's available. And so we're looking at the contractor that's doing our project, that's Fredericks Constructions. He's doing Bitcoin mining on well sites today where he's using flare gas. But the intermittence of the gas became very difficult. So in the process, that's how we decided, let's see if we can go on the grid. So we reached out to about a dozen different utilities, from Otter Tail to MDU, Montreal Williams, various powers, McKinsey Electric. We've had conversations with different utility companies where there's extra power. And that's why we're at. It's where the power's on the grid where it's maybe overbuilt. And sometimes they need it when they're drilling or fracking, and then the power becomes available. So this actually goes towards helping stabilize the grid long term, believe it or not.
So the 30 megawatts that you're talking about is already there?
That's correct.
So, I mean, Montreal Williams has excess power currently
There's
before
the-
they even
that's
finish their power?
That's correct. And the part of the agreement with Montreal Williams is we have about a 95% uptime, so we would be forced in real time to, and I have a slide on it, but we'll have to curtail. So if there's brownouts or it's like 27 below and they need the power, or it's 105 degrees, we are forced to curtail. They just give us a notice and we bring the miners down. So it does not impact local power as an example for interruption for them. All right, any other questions? Next slide. This just happened to show the site. The map doesn't do a very good job as far as showing distances, but if you look at the one would be on your left, the one to the, I gotta get my distance right, it'd be on my left. The Delta site is about 0.84 miles from the site. That's the one we have the approval on. That would be the one on the far left, is 0.84 miles. The other two residents, one is 0.9 miles on the right. It would be the arrows to your right looking at the screen. That one right there is at 0.9 miles to the residents from our measurement. And the one to the bottom right is 1.07 miles. Now, the challenge of the ordinance is, if you look at that one where you're at right now, you see that green area there? That creates an issue because the land for that residence gets to within a half a mile. So if you take the green shaded area there, the resident's property is within a half a mile, not the residence, but the property that it sits on. So your ordinance says that it's based on the property. I'm not exactly sure, Cameron, what the ordinance says about the land where the property sits. So that puts us at about a half a mile, but we're still 1.07 miles from the residence. That would be the arrow on the bottom right. Those are the three properties of consideration. The one on the left is 0.84. We have their approval. The other one is 0.9 to the right there. And then the one below, that's 1.07 to the residence. And then if you follow that outline right above that arrow, that's where the property gets within a half a mile. Consequently, we go over on the right side, we're showing the city of Williston, where the Williams County site is, where all the problems have created these issues, is there's a lot of residents within 300 feet. So we have the distances, just to give a comparison of what's going on their structure, their buildings, how many buildings are there. There's some within 207 feet, 243 feet. So the distance in your residence here in Williston is much different than what we're looking at on our location.
So
course, yes.
when we had 2 weeks of 105-degree heat, do you project your sound to be greater and more high-pitched at that time because they're super cooling?
They're going to run it the same, irregardless whether it's winter or summer. It's just a function of how the wind may be blowing and the way the temperature could be. Sometimes in the cold, it carries better in the winter than it does even in the summer. So it would be a function of, if it's a windy day, you may hear it if it's blowing that way. I don't think the residents would hear it on any of those locations with the way the property sits on there. The way it sits down in the valley with other, I don't think there'd be any noticeable noise at all, yeah, on any given day.
You also said you've got written permission from
The Delta
the
property, which is the one on the
.84?
left.
Is that a residence or that's a?
Well, it was a residence. It's been sold to Delta Construction. I do not know if anybody lives in there. They have trucks in the yard. It used to be a residence. There were pickups around the place, but they're based out of Alaska, headquartered, and I know they got a big operation out by Grassy Butte, and we got their permission and signed off on the project.
And the .9 is a residence?
That
Somebody lives-
.9 residence, that's correct, right there.
Okay.
That's correct. And I've met with him a number of times and has said he's opposed to it. And we even discussed potential buying it, not interested in selling, so we're here, that's what our request is for.
And I believe that, that the Delta residents, I believe that the boss lives there, but
Just a heads
I'm
up, we
taking
got,
all
this
my
is a,
time, we're at 8:27, so I apologize.
yeah, it's technically, we got
2
probably
minutes. And I
about
know you got
another
other
minute.
people that may be speaking against it. So if I can go to like one more slide, maybe. This talks about the jobs that we think would be about 40 jobs of construction, maybe 25 to 30 people would be working at the site. We'll go to the next slide real quick. We just want to make the point that we can come down in real time, and that's what it would really be about, is it's basically, we have real-time monitoring all the miners that we can bring it down. So if it's 105 degrees and it's a brownout, we bring them down. We might bring them down during the peak when everybody's on demand, and we bring them back up at night when it's cooled off. So we can bring them up and down in minutes, the miners from the site. And so they would give us they do a real-time monitoring at MWEC, and so they would give us a heads up, and that's when we have to bring her down. I think maybe one more slide. But just talking about we're making commitments to support the community in various ways. Well, I won't take every more time on that. I think that's basically the end of my slides. Any other questions?
We'll have a chance maybe we'll bring you back up if we have any additional questions when
Okay.
we're done with this, and then we'll make sure everybody gets a chance to speak, but we do have to jump into a scheduled joint meeting for Upper Missouri District Health Unit, so I apologize for that for everyone. That we'll be back with you as soon as we're done with this meeting. You can go ahead and have a seat. Thank you. Yes? Okay, yeah. Go ahead. What's that? Recess at 8:29? Okay. join, we'll start the meeting back up. So any other questions for N4 prior to continuing on with public comments from the rest of the folks in the audience? Okay, we'll open up the floor for public comment on the N4 project. Yep, come on up to the mic, and then if you don't mind, just state your name for the record, and any comments you have.
My name is Linda Schmidt. I'm here on behalf of my sister Marilyn Archer, who owns 180 acres across the road. She's very concerned about the whole. Evidently, what we understand is Trenton is not real compliant, and I don't know if these people have a thing to do with what's going on in Trenton, but they don't seem to be. And she's really concerned about fire. It's very hot, and there's a lot of oil there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments related to the data center project?
My name is Jodine Bergstrom, and I own land adjacent to this property. And I would like to ask that we move into an executive session because I do have an NDA agreement, and legally it might interfere with that. So if I could move into executive order.
Karen?
Yeah, unless we're going to be discussing confidential material, according to state law, we're not going to do that.
But I have confidential information that I've already signed on an NDA, so
Well,
that is pertinent to this.
yeah, well, I mean, we have to give public notice of the executive session. We have to say
Okay.
what the topics are on the agenda. And because we were not warned ahead of time about this, we're not able to give public notice of this at this point.
You don't have to give public notice on an executive order. I'm just asking, I have an NDA that I can't speak legally of everything that's involved in this, so I'm just requesting that we go into executive order because there's sensitive material that the public, I cannot speak to the public about.
Well,
What I'm saying is, under North Dakota Open Records Law and Open Meetings Law, we have to give advance notice on the agenda of the executive session and the topic could be discovered. It's not on the agenda, so we cannot do that at this point.
okay, so one thing to note, if the board chooses to allow this to move forward, there's still a whole nother round of public hearings, and then you can request that you get on the agenda from
Right,
that
we'll leave-
perspective.
I'll leave that part out.
Okay,
I actually am adjacent right to this land. And Gary noted that the reason he was here is because of, working with other deals. He actually got to this property through me because Montreal Williams Electric connected us together. He looked at buying my property. And because I was trying to hold industry standards and had a couple of questions on things, they've chosen to go to the lot next door. I oppose this greatly because of now, with his decision not to purchase my land, I am forced to sell my house. I will be moving out to this property, and I will be within 100 yards of this data center, and that concerns me. Because the thing is one of your ordinance, it requires that they have to do a noise study. And the thing is with these noises, it's a low buzz. And that's where everybody's complaining about because it's nonstop. So people's quality of life has been jeopardized because of the noises that are coming from this constant hum. Now, you do have in your ordinance that they do have to do a noise study. They haven't done that yet, obviously. But being 100 or less than 500 yards for the rest of my life, which I feel a little ornery, so I'm hoping I'm going to get 40 more years out of life. But that concerns me greatly, that I'm going to have to be living with that. And the one thing with this, I'm not opposed to data centers. If you look at the structure of my land, and I've talked to Cameron, and they've we actually had a meeting with Cameron and Gary to discuss the new ordinance. Now, with this, the way my land is structured, it's down in a valley. You guys have tried the fence over at the data center. It's not working. People are still complaining about the noise. I have natural barriers. I am anywhere from 50 to 75 feet lower than this property that they're looking at right now. So I have a natural barrier, and I was out there, I'm already stripping land out that way, and it's amazing, you don't realize how much natural contour can stop the noise. I walked up on the hillside where I will be putting my house, and there's actually a rig drilling to the south. And the wind was blowing in the opposite direction, and you could hear that rig. So I can only imagine with a data center and having to live out there, how much noise that's gonna bring. The other thing is if you look at your ordinance, there is a mile radius, and that also includes the IDs, which he did not point that out in his thing. So there's a lot of discrepancy on what they're showing you versus what is truth of this. So, like I said, I'm not against the data centers, but I am against with the location in which they are pointing it. Cameron, I'm not sure if you got the letter from Craig Stern. He is the owner of Monarch Development. He's the construction company that's in the red up there. He got the letter on Saturday. So he missed the deadline to get it into your packets. But he did send Cameron another letter opposing this. He is a construction company. Many times they are in their trucks, moving equipment back and forth to this location. And his main concern is quality of sleep for his truckers when they've got to park. He's actually located higher because of the way that his elevation is. And, you know, he's concerned about his truckers not getting quality sleep while they have to be there resting to go on to the next place. So it's not very often that he has to do that, but it's still over the road trucking is enduring. So that is his major concern. And I guess if anybody has any questions, I'm open for that.
Could you describe the, you were obviously for it when you were looking at selling your land and you're not for it now. Is there, without disclosing anything that's covered under NDA, is there anything that you can share that would explain why that is?
No.
Okay.
And then the other thing too is the natural sound barriers are a big part of this. And I do have that, and I did reach out to Gary and letting him know that I would still be open to negotiate to have them move to my property. So if you're looking at the reason you've developed this whole ordinance is because of the noise, I really invite you guys to come out and look at the location that I have. There's natural contours of the, and when you look at the hills, like for the IDs, because they would be the closest as well as Delta, there are berms and there are natural hills down, because I'm low enough in the valley, that there's no way that the sound comes, because that sound goes directly out. It doesn't go up, it goes directly out, and that's where the problem is. You're getting that, those fences are, it's going right through that, and the other thing is sound goes across the property lines as well.
Which one of those, are you the two yellows?
I'm the greens.
The green, so which one are you?
The one that's where the T is at, so that, yep, right up there. That's the one that if you go into there, so there's frontage road there, there's already a road base that, because they're stripping the land right there. But that, when you go down there, there's a natural valley down in there that they can continue, and they're gonna be anywhere from 50 to 100 feet lower. So if they've got a 30-foot building, they're still 20 feet where they've got a buffer zone. That's natural land.
So Ryan, do you have contours that layer? Okay, okay.
I have them on my computer, but I don't know if I can.
So they're still closer, but that's closer to the houses that were on the map before, right?
The yellow or that green?
Where you're proposing, I guess, I don't know.
So look at the green. We see
Yep.
the green where it makes that T. So that short T that goes to the north. So But there's a natural valley of the temple. If you look at where the elevations are, because I do have those, elevation from, because the location that they're looking at is level to to that Highway 8 or County Road 8, which is paved. And I dropped down a minimum of 50 feet, and in lower areas where they could dig down, it would be up to 100 feet. So, and the other thing is, I do have a question for you. Well, we'll finish this up, and then I have one other point.
I know they were doing something across there here earlier early spring, early summer. Isn't there I think they is there a pipeline that runs through there?
On my property?
Yeah, on that T, right?
Yeah, there is, but it's off to the side.
Right,
It's
but I
not right in
mean,
the middle.
they'll have an easement on the pipeline, I mean, so, you know, with.
But there's still enough,
setbacks and-
there's 17 acres that go back there. So there's plenty of room to, and you can build a road over that easement. That's not in jeopardizing of that. No, but they
You
could do
can't have a
they could go
structure or
front to back. So they're not going to be side to side, but they could still, it's long enough that you could go front to back because you got at least 17 acres to work with there.
I just have a quick question. I mean, this sounds like a sales pitch, and I don't know that this is a place for,
It's not a sales
well,
pitch. I'm
it
just,
sure sounds like it to me. I'm struggling with it because we're trying to
I'm just giving you the
decide
facts.
which
I'm looking at
land
the
that they
ordinance.
should buy. You're against it here, but you're for it here because it's yours, and I don't.
It's not just mine, it's the way that the structure of the land is. So I'm looking at your ordinance and what you guys are requiring, and it's the noise. And when you look at the natural contour of the land, then there is an ideal place. So if you're looking to approve, and the other thing I have an issue with is and this is Craig's too, the devaluation of my property. I cannot put a data center in because you've got a 3-mile buffer. So now I'm screwed over, and that land is already market value of over $765,000. My little land strip is like 11,000. I'm next to zero. So I have an issue with that. And Craig has an issue with the devaluation of his property land as well. Craig Stern, Monarch Development, he's the red. So I'm saying I'm not against putting in data centers. I'm against where you are allowing them if you are really going to tie in true to your ordinance that you've created.
Well, to that point, that means that your property also is not able to put a data center on because your home would be too close. The neighbor's home is gonna be closer than where we're at now. I'm not in favor of any of them because there's residences within a mile.
Right.
So even if they chose your property,
But if
you would
you-
also be up here for an appeal for the same reason, because it does not fit within the 1-mile radius,
Well,
correct?
if my land sells, then I don't have to move out there. That's the whole concept of it as well. So, but the other side of that is if you do the noise data or the noise study is what you're requiring, that noise is not going to travel into those residents because of the contour of the land. The natural buffer of hills, trees, and land stops that sound barrier. It travels through wood. You guys have already encountered that with Starlink, and it goes across property lines, but it will not travel through the natural contour of the land. The land stops it.
Have you applied for a building permit?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
This all has I got the letter on Thursday, the 12th. It was mailed out the 2nd, and that's another thing you guys got to be concerned with. Craig got his on the 13th.
Yep, and I spoke with your sister Carol yesterday, and hers showed up, I think she said her letter showed up on Friday, but it was postmarked the 4th of September.
Mine was the 6th. I know you don't have
We
control
don't
of
run
it.
the post office.
I know you don't have control, but you do need to be aware that on sensitive matters, there's,
But I mean, other than notifying the people that will be affected,
did she call you?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Anything else for us?
Yes, on that land, it was sold to Enable, the 25 acres that Lorne now owns. In that contract, it was in there that they needed to have a fence around the property. That is not being upheld. Can you please direct me to how we enforce that?
Karen or Cameron, or both.
All right, so in what document was the fence required?
Any of them, I've been at every commissioner meeting for getting those switched over. So that is part of the conditional use of turning it into industrial, is having it fenced in.
Well, it seemed like, I mean, Hammond Phillips ran that yard for, I don't know, 10
And they used to
years
have it
or
at-
something like
What's
that.
happened is that when they dumped all that soil, they dumped it on that fence line.
Brian, can you turn on the conditional?
Well, there
use
was a,
permit,
there was a barbed
attachments?
wire fence back there.
Huh?
There was a barbed wire fence back there.
Right.
And I
But
mean, if you were, I mean, if you're looking for some kind of sound
you click
mitigation or
on-
something.
I'm not
that-
looking for sound, I'm looking
The,
for,
the parcel there with the building, and then we'll see if there's an attachment, and it would list what conditions at the time were required and whether it's still active. So what we found with some of these, and I'm not sure, and this probably isn't the meeting to research this and go over this topic. However, we would have to research the minutes to see if that was written in the minutes. If it's not written in the minutes, it's nothing that the county could enforce. If there's a private agreement or agreement between landowners, that's something that's enforced outside of the county. But we could certainly look into that and see if it's.
well, I know it
in the
was
meeting
required for
minutes.
Craig, and it was also required for Enable. And they have upheld their fences.
Yep, I can certainly look into the history
Right,
and the
but
minutes.
seeing
on that.
how, I mean, Enable doesn't own it, I don't really know how
But
that
it
would
should follow
be,
the landowner.
Yeah, that,
I don't
conditional
think-
use permits, unless it's for a second dwelling, actually run with the owner, not with the land. And so it may, if it did change ownership, then it would no longer be a valid CUP for whatever operation at the time they had, which if it was Hammond Phelps, was probably oil field related.
Well, yeah, they would have had a CUP because they had a man camp out there, and that didn't seem to bother anybody, or the
Well-
75 trucks, or, you know, all that business didn't, that was never an issue.
So I could certainly research it, but I wouldn't have an answer at this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public on the data center? Come on up.
Just for the record, to clarify a couple things, I'd like to
State your name again. just so
Okay,
it's-
Gary Emeneth with Enterport Digital. One of the concerns we had was when we looked at Jodine's land, there was potentially some encumbrances that would have been difficult to proceed on. So we looked at other land. Now, I was aware there was other land there because she stated that I found out from her that MWEC had power there. That's not true. Montreal Williams gave us a variety of locations through Williams and Montreal County where they have potential power opportunities for data centers. So that's why we looked at this land in the first place. And so when I toured this particular area like I do all the other ones, we saw there was a sign with land for sale, but we looked at Jodine's first. But so I did call her, we did have conversations, but we decided after a meeting we had with Cameron that we're gonna look at other opportunities, which is what we did. Second of all is that this other land is heavy industrial zoned. Hers was zoned ag, which was just one more step in the process. And lastly, if you could possibly bring up that other map that we had. I think in my slide deck, maybe around slide number 7 or 8, if you want to go back a couple, that's one with the red lines, right there, there we go. She stated that I did not point out Steve ID. If you look at the bottom arrow to the bottom right, that is the ID location, and that is 1.07 miles right there. Now, like I said, that green box that goes around it, if you look at kind of there's a box around it, if you're able to zoom in a little bit, that, and for clarification, I don't want to mislead, I believe their land is that green shaded area there, that's correct? Yep. I'm not exactly sure the parameters, but it does get within a half a mile or so to the site, because their land adjoins and with the resident sits on that. But the resident is 1.07 miles. That's oil. And so we got approval from where you see 0.84 miles on the left, that's the Delta location. On the right, the residence is Jodine's brother. That's the only one from a residence that we don't have permission on is 0.9. So Commissioner Anderson, to your point, there is one, and that's why we're asking for the appeal for consideration, because if you take the contours of the land, we believe in the sound study, he would not be aware that we're even there. Okay, any other questions?
So you do have a sound study?
No, we've already got a couple $100,000 invested in the project. Until we even know we can do the project, we just want to spend more. But
Gotcha.
we recognize we have to bring those things forward, but we have about 6 weeks until we have to get through this. And if you say we can proceed, then we would apply and do all the appropriate things in the checklist, because it's probably another $150,000 investment for us just to find out we can't do it, so that's the challenge.
Okay.
Okay? Other questions? EMINETH. Other questions?
No,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you. Any other public comments? Okay. Then we'll turn it over to the board. Just a comment. I did tour the data center in Butte, Montana, and that was exhausted out the roof. And there was a significant difference in the noise level when I was on site there versus the ones that are the Atlas data center, where the air is pushed out the side of the building. It is a high-pitched noise. No matter what you do, it's a much higher pitch, then it's not a low pitch sound. So I'm no sound engineer, so I won't comment any further, but it is loud and it is constant, but when it's shooting straight up in the air, there is a noticeable difference. I can say that from personal experience.
I would make a motion to follow staff recommendations, which is option 2, approval of the appeal, allowing to concurrently submit a CUP and variance application for reduced setbacks.
Okay, is there a second?
I would second that.
Any discussion?
I guess the only reason I consider this is because it has to go through all the public comment process, so the public can see it. Because I would like to see the noise study. Obviously, there's a residence in question that is inside that 1 mile radius. So I guess I have to have faith that our process will work, and they have to prove the appeal. So that's the only reason I would consider it.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Anybody else? Any other comments?
I would, that's why I'm saying let's do it, because it has to go through all the steps and we have to get those studies. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Bo.
Okay. Any additional discussion? No, it's up to the board now, so. Okay, Beth, roll call vote.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay. We're moving on to item G, report of departments. Number 1, County Highway.
Morning.
Morning.
3C goes 1 mile north of County Road 8. There's a location on the end of it, and some the joining landowners asked if we could lower the speed limit to 35 on that 1 mile.
Is that slow enough?
Yep.
You can put a 25-mile-an-hour sign up. No one drives 25.
No.
Unless you have somebody standing there reading
It
it.
does help if we have a patrolman leaning against the sign, but
Okay. What are the wishes of the board?
Make a motion to approve the speed limit change to 35 miles an hour on County 3C.
For
Second.
just the 1 mile?
Yeah, for whatever the 1 mile
That's all there is there.
from County 8 to,
Minimum maintenance.
Oh.
It's just 1 mile
Okay.
stretch.
for the
Okay.
1 mile stretch.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote, please.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes, motion passes.
At the intersection of 8 and 21, just a little bit south, like 50 yards or so, there's a bunch of trees and brush growing up in it, and it's the trucks are having a hard time seeing around it, but, everything's about to lose its leaves, so, I mean, it'll get better, but maybe we could grind them up or something.
Okay. We will look that direction. Oh, that's what we start with now. Soon as we get that other season, then we start on those things. I don't say that word. Okay. Perfect time.
Yeah. Dennis, any update on the road?
That's
out
where
by-
we're headed.
Okay.
County Road 4 is paved. Of course, there's cleanup now and punch list and whatever. And County Road 11 north of Alamo, they'll start paving the end of the week, hopefully Thursday, but everything goes right, weather permitting. County 17 is by the RT water plant going south. 4 miles has been paved and striped. And they have cleanup and rock picking and punch list left there. And if everything goes with weather and everything goes correctly, County Road 19 will start paving on the 30th of September. So it's going very good. Weather permitting. Everything should be. Nope. Other than that, all good. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to dispatch.
I'm just giving a quick handoff to Michelle here. So in the period of time before Michelle was hired, we didn't dig into this particular item that she's going to present to you, although we understand that Tim, the former director, had started down this path. So she's going to give you the update. I would tell you that we've met a couple of times to talk through the details of this, and she's done a fair amount of research. There is money in the budget because we have found some cost savings in some other ways. So there is money in the 2024 budget to cover the request she's going to make. And then Michelle will talk you through that there would be future expenses, but we'd be able to budget those.
Welcome, Michelle.
I need a step stool.
Yeah.
Good morning. So what I'm requesting is approval to proceed on a project and then the contract to be signed when it's finalized. What we're looking to do at dispatch is to move, currently we have on-premises servers for our CAD. And we're looking to move it to a cloud-based server, which is the nationwide trend currently. It provides more stability, it's lower maintenance, and then quicker upgrades, especially for our user agencies like law enforcement. Like Helen mentioned, it was previously looked into by the previous director. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. We've kind of went back and forth with our CAD vendor as they're the ones that will be hosting the server. The initial upfront cost is heavily discounted. And then there will be a budget increase for dispatch as well as the sheriff's office going down the road.
Okay. Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I cheated. We've had a conversation about this. Why don't you give some of the numbers so they have an idea of what we're talking about? Because a budget increase, if it's Dennis that says it, we know it's big. But if it's you, we'd like to know what the number is.
Okay, so the initial cost upfront that we would need in 2024 would be $25,000. That's capped. So no matter the service hours that it takes to complete the project, that is all we would be paying, which is a huge discount for us. For each year after, the first year post go live date, so we would see an increase in the budget roughly the end of 26, beginning of 27, and that would be roughly $61,000 for dispatch. And then for the sheriff's office, that would be roughly $11,000, only due to some of the programs that are used by the jail would have to have an additional API integration. But the nice thing with the cloud-based servers, those integrations that need to be built are much more easier going forward.
Right, and you don't have a fixed cost of replacing servers and things like that, so that, because it's in the cloud, that's a...
Yep, and dispatch, we will have to replace our hardware and servers roughly 25, 26. And with that always comes with a downtime for our user agency. So all our law enforcement agencies, we wouldn't be able to use our CAD system for 2.5 to 5 hours is what they said.
Wow. Okay, any other questions? Yeah. Okay, what are the wishes of the board?
I would make a motion to approve the $25,000 expenditure to upgrade to cloud-based. See, I'm using the technical terms now.
Well, you are a
And
techie.
then we would have to do what needs to be done in the future.
Okay, is there a second?
Is that authorized chairman to sign too, or
Yes.
I'll second?
Good question, thanks, Bo. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote, please.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, Darrell, you're up. Vector control update. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
All right, good morning. My name is Darrell Haygood, Director of Williams County Vector Control District Number 1. Just wanted to give the commissioners kind of a brief overview of how the season went this year. We were able to get 10 seasonal employees, which is what I would think could be optimum moving forward. So we got lucky in that regard. One of them was a intern from Gonzaga who did a lot of our lab work for us this year. That worked out really well. With those, excuse me, with those employees, we were able to do 56 total acres of barrier sprays. The barrier sprays are what we do to help out the functions that are taking place in public parks and public arenas, things like that, concerts, fairs, things like that. So we were able to do about 56 acres of barrier sprays to support those functions. We were able to do about 20 acres of ground larviciding, mostly things like ditches, drains, small areas that are going to produce mosquitoes around the populated areas. We were able to complete 26,268 acres of larviciding, and that includes the helicopter, the drone, and fixed-wing aircraft. Ground adulticiding, we were able to do 7,205 total acres this season, and aerial adulticiding with the helicopter and the fixed wing, we were able to do about 120,000 total acres. So I feel like that we accomplished quite a bit this season. Most of our employees have left for the season, but we are still monitoring mosquito populations. The season is not technically over yet. We're still picking up a few mosquitoes here and there in traps that we have set up around the county. We also were able to get the laboratory back up and running this year. We managed to do 281 arbovirus tests on mosquito pools that we had captured around the county. Out of those 281 tests, we had 32 positive pools come back for West Nile virus. All of the test results are given daily to the North Dakota Department of Health, so they're aware of all these results on a real-time basis, so I think that's very beneficial. To my knowledge, there was one report of an individual that contracted West Nile virus within the county, but that is the only person that I'm aware of. So again, the more treatments that we do, the more testing that we do, I believe the numbers are going to stay fairly low on the West Nile virus transmission, but that's not all. We can't control all of that. A lot of that's just going to be based on a season-by-season basis, but I feel like this season we made it through, so far anyway, in good shape. We contracted with Aero Spraying Services for a lot of our aerial pest control or aerial adulticiding, aerial larviciding. We contracted with Fletcher at DeKalb Aviation to do aerial inspections of the river bottom with the helicopter, and I believe that was very beneficial. I don't think that's been done in the past, but it allowed us to get out into places we were unable to get to before, and we found larvae and were able to treat those larvae. And then we also contracted with Masters of None Drone Services to do quite a bit of drone work for us, especially in the first half of the season. And again, I believe that allowed us to get into places that we'd never been able to treat before. And the end result is we did not have any appreciable adults flying until July 4th, probably the week of July 4th, the week after that is when we started noticing mosquitoes showing up in significant numbers in our traps. So I believe the heavy emphasis that we did on larviciding was the reason for that. There was a point where the vegetation in the river bottom got high enough that we were unable to land the helicopter there, and we basically lost the ability to monitor the larvae in the river bottom. So by the middle of July, end of July, going into August, there were a lot of adults hatching off, and we shifted our focus to trying to reduce the adult population. We work closely with Cody Green at the Army Corps of Engineers. We've We've been working closely with them to get permission to go into the areas we need to go into, so we appreciate his assistance. Also work closely with Kent Luschwager with the North Dakota Game and Fish Commission. Same thing with places we can treat, places we can't treat, based on some of the requirements that they have. And then last but not least, the Air Force. We contracted with the Air Force to do 3 treatments this year. The first one was a larvicide application in the month of June. We can get approximately 6,000 acres out of the Air Force over that week time that they're in town. And because of wind mostly, they were only able to spray 2 days, but they were able to knock out approximately 2/3 of the larvicide acreage in the river bottom that we were asking them to do. The remainder was picked up by Rick Marburger and Arrow Spraying Services. Again, wind was the main reason the Air Force was unable to complete the entire polygon. Now, they came back in July for a adulticide mission. The traps indicated that it was a very spot-on time for them to come. We had mosquitoes flying, but when they come, they do Minot, they do Williston, and they do Watford City. They did Minot first, and unfortunately, they struck a duck, and it damaged the leading edge of the wing on the aircraft, and they were having issues getting it repaired, so we had to scrub that mission that the Air Force was scheduled to do in July. Again, we had Rick Marburger, Arrow Spraying Services, come in and do that mission for them. And then we had another adulticide mission scheduled with the Air Force in August, but we had a cool, dry spell where the mosquito population just kind of took a nosedive. We did not have justification in the traps in Watford City or Williston for the Air Force to spray during that August mission. So that's kind of an overview. All of our employees, like I say, are mostly students that had to go back to school, so we're down to one seasonal employee, and she will be leaving at the end of the week, so we're transitioning into that that gradual shutdown at this point. I think we're still going to monitor mosquitoes as best as we can. We'll see a few until the weather, until we get our first frost or freeze, and then that should kind of stamp the end of the season. So, any questions?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, a loaded question for you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, can you do something? He gets that call too, but my question is wrapped around, I really want to congratulate you on the efforts of larviciding and getting and thinking to use the helicopter for surveillance of the river. I've done this myself in the boat. It's incredibly time consuming to get in the boat, and you want to get to a spot to dip, and you have to trudge through 3 foot of water with bent over willows through all of it, and it's just it's very time consuming. So the helicopter made a ton of sense. My question for you is because of the growth of the vegetation, what would you, the loaded question here is the benefit of having a different aircraft to service that?
I get what you're going at. The one of the things that we did where I came from was we relied on the helicopters quite a bit to do surveillance. We would send inspectors out in the field, and they would fly the entire county, and it would give us data, real-time data a lot quicker, and give us access to places we couldn't get to any other way. What we had, however, where I came from, was helicopters that were large enough that you could put 2 or 3 people in it, along with things like weed eaters and things like that, so that when you went out to these LZs, these landing zones and these inspection sites, you could keep that site trimmed down so that the helicopters could get in and out of there 12 months out of the year. Well, the problem we ran into here was around the end of June, 1st of July, the vegetation in our landing zones just got so high that if we tried to land, the tail rotor would hit the vegetation, so we couldn't do that anymore. The helicopter that we're contracted with is a very, very small helicopter. You can only get the pilot and one other person in it, and there's no room for any weed eaters or equipment like that to keep those LZs under control. So we begin to look into the possibility of maybe purchasing a larger aircraft that would give us the capacity to carry 3 or 4 people and be able to keep these LZs open so that we don't lose track of the larvae when the vegetation gets up. I've spoken with representatives from Bell Helicopter. I actually saw a Bell platform down in Dallas when I was down there for a meeting that would be perfect for what it is we're trying to do. So hopefully here in the October or November, we can have a representative come by and talk to me or talk to you guys. Might even have a helicopter flown out so that we can demo it, just to get an idea of if that's what's going to suit us. But right now we're looking into that. We're at the very initial stages of thinking about that, but that would be my recommendation at this point would be to get a more capable platform for our helicopter.
Perfect. Thank you for the loaded question. Any other questions for Terrell regarding Vector?
Nothing? Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Terrell. Appreciate all the hard work. Okay. Leaves us to item number H for Helen.
All right. I think you have a copy of an updated position report. We had some action in accepting positions, withdrawing positions, new open positions over Friday, Monday. And so the updated report shows 6 positions needing approval. And I'll read them off just in case you don't have it. First, at the Adolescent Care Center, we have a adolescent care attendant. In the assessor's office, we do have the director of tax equalization. You all got an email about that. That is Darcy Anderson, who was at your last meeting. She has relocated or is relocating outside of the area. The auditor's office has an administrative assistant position, as does County Highway, and then 2 positions at dispatch.
That's what we get for having 0 on the last one, right?
I know, I feel like I jinxed us in July when I was so excited about it. You know, it's a random assortment of reasons. We have people moving outside of the area. We have folks going on to pursue a career in which they have some training and had just been kind of known to be stopping with us for a little while. Gosh, just it all happened at once. So, seeking permission to fill all of these.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Beth, roll call vote, please.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, that's all I have.
Wow, all right. And with that, we will adjourn at 9:38.